Today, I'm talking to Shawn Woof of Sothebys International Realty Canada in Muskoka, a second home market, and what he reminds me is to Toronto what the Hamptons is to New York. 10 years ago, Shawn was investing in real estate and decided to get his license because he didn't see the value in having to pay an agent. Since then, he has discovered that there are great real estate agents, and great real estate agents don't just offer great value, they are essential. As a result of all of this, Shawn has become a top real estate agent in his market, in a market that is dead, for the lack of a better word, for at least 4 months out of the year. Shawn saw this not as a problem, but as an opportunity. He had an idea. He used that time to align and execute for success. He continues to grow and cultivate that idea and his success today. We talk about how he did it and how he does it. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. Everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Today is Shawn Woof from Muskoka in Canada with Sothebys International Realty Canada. Shawn, it's so good to have you today. Excited to share. You don't do business exactly like a lot of agents do business, so I'm excited to introduce you and learn from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks, Jere. I've had the opportunity to listen to a few of the podcasts, not all of them that you've done. Certainly will continue to have them on my list, and I'm just so honored that I'm able to participate. So thank you. So very quickly, the area that I trade in is, as you mentioned, Muskoka. It's in Ontario, which is and Muskoka itself is a couple hours north of Toronto. The way to describe the area best for those who aren't really familiar with the area is that it's essentially Toronto and the Greater Toronto area's playground. So it'd be much like the Hamptons to New York is what Muskoka is to Toronto. So
Toronto's playground, the Hamptons.
Toronto's playground. Yeah, it was interesting a few years back. I believe it was the New York Times had an article in there that made that analogy. So I find when I'm speaking to other agents across North America, it's the best way to describe the area.
Love it. Well, that kind of wraps it up in a quick statement. So we want to learn today about in a market. You've been with Sothebys for how many years?
It's just over 6 now.
Okay. And in Canada, how old is Sothebys? 14, is it?
I think we're about 15 now,
okay,
give
14.
or take. Yes. Okay.
So why did you decide to become a real estate agent? Did you lose your mind? I always say that.
Well, I'm not sure I had a mind to begin with, but anyway, it's quite a simple story. I was working for a builder developer in London, Ontario, which is sort of between Toronto and Detroit. Mm-hmm. In southwestern Ontario, and it was time to move on from my position there and kind of head out on my own. But at the time, I was buying up properties up in the Muskoka area and renting them out. And quite simply, the initial reason for getting into real estate was because I had some properties of my own that I wanted to sell, and I didn't necessarily think that other people could sell them better, or maybe a little bit more truthfully, I didn't see the value of other agents selling them for me. Of course, my mindset is completely different now, but at the time, that was the initial reason for getting in, so I could sell my own properties.
So breaking into the business, it sounds like it might have been not so hard to win business, being that you were your own client.
Well, I mean that was an easy start. I did have a listing or two to work with, but cash flow wasn't a fantastic, wasn't easy to come by back then. Let's say. So I was looking at doing other things. I had experience in building and being a general contractor, so I did some of that work at the time. I was a little bit all over the place and not really focused against the profession of being a true realtor or a true broker. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of, I did a little bit here, a little bit there, but it really didn't become my complete focus in all truth until I came to Sotheby's.
Wow. Okay. So when you came to Sotheby's, I'm going to still get your story out. I have so many questions beyond that. But when you came to Sotheby's, so you're not really, you kind of fell into this like I did and a lot of us do. And it's funny how a lot of people on the show aren't like us and they really had a vision to get here and did it. So you landed at Sotheby's. How did that, you don't usually land at Sotheby's, but you weren't really, how did that unfold from, I'm going to get my license because brokers have no value. I mean, just to put it bluntly, and
Yeah.
may as well do it, to, oh, wait, maybe I'll be a professional at Sotheby's International Realty and offer the best service possible because we have real value.
Yeah. So I think service was always a very important thing to me in whatever I was doing. Started way back when, a couple of lifetimes ago, it feels like now, in consumer packaged goods and sales. So I had a sort of a formal sales background. So that was always there. The service part was there. But going, making the transition to becoming a full-time service-oriented, client-focused individual was a bit of a journey. But once I went to Sotheby's from the broker that I was at, it really did change my mindset. I really felt that I was a professional just by the card that I was carrying. And so all of a sudden, the tide started to rise in how I treated everything from a professional realtor standpoint.
Wow. What made you come, what did make you go from just having a broker's license to buy stuff to being an agent? Was it being an agent at Sotheby's? Was it, I'm going to be a professional? Or was it, I'm just trying to figure, like, at what point, what point did you really know you were going to be a professional?
It's a really good question. So I found, and this could be through my own ignorance, for lack of a better term, that where I was, the brokerage I was at prior, I didn't feel like offered me tools, training, other things that we all really need to become successful. And partially, I will take the blame for that because I didn't immerse myself in it for whatever reason. It didn't seem to be available to me as much as I now have it available to me at Sotheby's. So I did go with another gentleman who I was working with at the time. So that was sort of the reason he was changing brands. So I went along with it. I didn't know too much about it, but I knew something was different. And soon as I realized that there was this whole world of international support and great realtors that I could connect with and learn from, and a brokerage that only wanted to help me, and a brand that supported everybody becoming better at all times, I was hooked.
I love it. Because everybody's going to say, did Sotheby's pay for this interview? They did not. But I think, I feel the same way about Sotheby's. I think that everybody listening, Sotheby's, not Sotheby's, whatever, the message is align yourself with the people in the environment that align with your values. Because at the time, you didn't come in as wanting to rock it. You just came into it wanting to be kind of the best you. And that brought you to new levels. I mean, right now you have how many listings? 13, 14? I think I counted at 5, 14.
Yeah, I was 14, 15, and I'm probably down to 5 or 6 right now. It's been a crazy period in the market up here right now, but I generally carry 14 or 15.
Okay.
And there's no question there's other great brands out there. So Sotheby's is a great fit for me, and a great fit for a lot of us. But I think the message in all of this is that make sure you know what's available to you and take advantage of it, and really immerse yourself in the culture, and really dive in and see what's there that you can utilize, not only from your brokerage or your brand, but from your colleagues.
And it sounds like you were, to kind of dig deep into you and how you really became successful. You were at another company and you were floating, and then you were like, wait a minute, just like the reason why you became an agent, the reason why you thought agents weren't valuable was the reason you became a valuable agent, is because you join a company just to join and have the license. And you're like, wait, I need more than this to do the job right. And then you found the place where you did the job right. And then you found your value and became the ultimate professional real estate agent. In that journey, you went again, you've now become a top agent. You are selling in a market that's the second home market. So there's not always a sense of urgency to deal with. How did you cultivate? I mean, in only 6 years, you've become incredibly successful. How did you cultivate that business so quickly and launch yourself once you got serious?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I really enjoy telling the story, and it all goes back to the previous brand. One thing I did do there that I'm thankful for is that I went to a networking event, and I think it was in New Orleans at the time, and I just wanted to see what it was all about. And I remember having dinner with quite a successful broker in Toronto, and he was telling me the story about this successful agent who was a little bit north of the city, and the agent was doing it purely through referrals. And I sort of tucked that away in the back of my head and floated for a little while longer. And then I arrive at Sothebys, and this whole new energy is there for me and for the business. And I start to think about how am I going to take myself to the next level. So just a little background: the area that I work in, as we said, in Muskoka, I don't know if any of you guys have heard, but there's a lot of snow in Canada in the winter, and as a result of that,
I think I
our
heard
lakes
something about that.
freeze. Yeah, you did, right?
Right.
So our lakes freeze, and if you're selling waterfront property, you're typically not selling in the winter, because if you can't see the water, which is the most valuable part of your experience here, you're probably not buying. So we got a bit of a blackout period from basically middle of December, early December, right through till April or so. So, I did some business that year. I was doing okay, but the question is that what am I going to do with my time now in this 4-month blackout period to really, really help build my business? And I said, okay, well, I don't particularly enjoy sitting in the snow and shoveling, so I'm just gonna go and get myself an apartment in Toronto, and I'm gonna go to our head office in downtown Toronto, and I'm gonna show up there, and I'm gonna, that's gonna be my job. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna sit there. I'm not necessarily gonna do any trades, but I'm gonna meet everybody I can, and I'm gonna talk about cottage property and see if I can't create some relationships that will result in some business. And for me, it was hugely successful. My business has never been the same since that 4-month move to Toronto.
Wow. So you spent 4 months in Toronto. I bet you learned a lot about the business too from the other agents there.
I learned a ton. And, it was reciprocal, because I found myself in a cubicle, kind of in a high traffic area. I was in the hallway on the way to the bathroom. So I'd be sitting there, and they would see me every day, and agents I hadn't met before and agents I had would stop at my cubicle on the way to get a coffee or
the bathroom.
On the way to get rid of the coffee. Right. So,
right.
So they would come and they'd stop by, and they would inevitably ask me questions about Muskoka. And I'd ask questions of them, and we'd be back and forth. And after 4 months, I had this whole great group of people that started referring business to me.
How I mean, how brilliant. And you just went to Toronto. Like I think a lot
I
of
just went to
people,
Toronto.
nothing against it, but COVID has kind of changed that. A lot of people like to travel the country and go visit different markets, but you're meeting somebody once for a few minutes. But you just went to the same office every day. Your biggest feeder market. What is it, 2 hours
It's two
away?
hours.
Yeah.
It's 100% the biggest feeder market. So yeah, my job was to go there, work on marketing, come up with ideas in here. But the main focus of that winter was to go there and meet referral partners, of which many of them I still work with today. And the idea was simple. The idea is that where I'm selling, there are very successful agents who've got very significant books of business and who've been in the business for decades in the area. Not only that, they grew up cottaging here. And as much as it's a decent sized community, they've had relationships for generations with their families. It's very difficult to break into a secondary market like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew one thing. I've got really, really successful colleagues in Toronto who have clients who belong in that circle where I trade. And so my only way for me to break in was to break in with them. And I've been able to do that, and it continues to provide great opportunities for me.
What a great story, because I think so many people would think, oh, I need to call people all day, or I need to send mailers out and spend thousands of dollars and hours that would get you no place like these relationships. When you were in Toronto, you went to the office every day, like 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week?
I may have played hooky from time to time, but yeah, I was 4 to 5 days a week in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wasn't in the office, I was meeting somebody for dinner or going out for a cocktail with them on
Brilliant.
Friday night. I was just trying to continue to build relationships the whole time I was there.
Yeah. And when you were there building those relationships, did you ever think, this is dumb? This isn't going to work. What am I doing with my time?
It was certainly a calculated risk, but it was a very small risk in my book. I actually very much believed that I'd be successful, and my bar was very, very low.
Yeah,
If I got one or two deals,
that's enough.
that was enough. It paid for my winter, and I had a little fun, and I met some great people. The bar wasn't that big to overcome, and I more than surpassed it, to the point that I would say, I haven't done my numbers recently, but I would say 75% of my business is referrals.
I think a lot of times we think if we're going to get big results, we got to do big, crazy things. But sometimes if you just like back off and simplify and engage and connect a little bit, that's what it went such a long way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, I'll give you another example. I took Ninja in November in
Yeah.
Toronto. Very few ninjas, in Canada. And Ryan Seacrest was up to teach that class, and it was a phenomenal experience. I highly recommend.
I keep
But
hearing about that. I still haven't
yeah,
done it. I've done a couple of webinars and I loved them. Okay, but so Ryan Seacrest, and then
yeah.
I've got another question I'm dying to know, but we got to hear this. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it was to your point about the simplest things can have a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
So, if and when you take Ninja, you'd be perfect for it. It would just reinforce all the things you're great at already.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I learned there is that sellers and buyers want to know there's a process. They feel comfortable in the idea that there's a process. And I didn't have a great process. So I took some time when COVID hit to go, okay, is there a couple pieces I can add to my process that will help the buyers or sellers experience and relate to them that I have a process and it's something that they can follow and be confident in. So it was as
Yeah.
simple as creating a couple of marketing pieces that I now send out to every single client that I work with. And I continue to automate that and make it look a little bit different. The
Yeah.
point is, something as simple as one page can change your client's experience relatively quickly with a little bit of focus.
Love that. And so you actually send something out about your process?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
I do. It's just a one pager, and they can follow along. They can see where they are in the process, from the initial listing consultation to these days a virtual open house, to signing the contract, to closing the transaction. It's all there for them, and they know exactly where they are
I'm
at
going to
every step.
ping you to get a copy of that. I need.
Happy to share.
My
Happy to
process
share.
is too many pages long. We could simplify a little. Of course, you could always make anything as shorter as long as you really like. So how long once you spent that 4 months, is that all it took, or do you spend every 4 months every year with agents in Toronto, or how did you kind of propel that? How fast was it, and how did you continue it?
So it's something I continually do. If I'm not here in the heat of the market, I am, you'll quite often find me in Toronto or all over North America at this point, because I went from networking in my direct feeder market to connecting with great agents all over North America. Mm-hmm. So the networking and building relationship part of my business is very, very important. It continues to be. And when you're networking with agents, especially outside of your market, there's so many other opportunities that you can capture, because everybody has their own way of doing things. There is a nugget or a piece of actionable information that is available pretty much in every conversation or in every relationship that we have. The key to it is executing against it. There's no question there's lots of great ideas. There are those who are willing to execute against those ideas, and those are much fewer.
So true. I already wrote this down, everybody, because he said it earlier, and I said, seriously, like, we're going to have to cut off the interview once you said this, Shawn. But there are a lot of great ideas, but there are not many people who can execute great ideas. There's such truth in that, and that's what you've done. So, originally you took a small risk. You're spending some time in Toronto. Now you're traveling the country. You're also doing some other things, which lead me to the investment in yourself, which can often be scary. Tell us a little bit about your experience with investing in yourself.
Yeah, I've got the perfect story for you. Canada sometimes is a little bit behind, and we can look to our colleagues in the South for more kind of groundbreaking ideas, but this one is not new to anybody, but the story's kind of cool. Is that a few years ago, Sothebys International Realty Canada developed a partnership with a company called Evoker. And what Evoker was doing, and they did a great job at it, were personal videos. It would tell a little bit about who you are, the market you're in, and they did a great job piecing together this 2.5 or 3 minute video. At the time, cash flow wasn't optimum, but I did have a few bucks put aside, and I thought this was a great idea. It would make me look fantastic. It's something I could put out to prospective clients if I wasn't meeting them, because quite often my first introduction is not face to face. So this would tell people a little bit about me. Mm-hmm. And I think it was about $5,500 US at the time, because there was a group of 20 of us, and it was sort of a trial project.
Well, we need to know how many
Canada.
that is in Canadian.
I can't quite do the calculation anymore.
About $1 million,
something about a million.
I'm giving you a hard time. We talked earlier, obviously, everybody, but you're like, it was 5,500. US. That's about $1 million Canadian, which we all know isn't true. But I love that. I couldn't leave it out.
Well, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So anyway, it was a significant amount of money at the very least at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was a fairly difficult decision. Do I place the money here? Do I go with some sort of digital advertising? Do I go with print advertising? Where do I go with this investment? And what sort of level of confidence do I have that this is really going to return for me? Mm-hmm. And so fast forward, it gets done. The video's great. It gets sent out. It gets all these views. People would mention it from time to time, but I was still trying to pinpoint exactly where the return was. And so oddly enough, that return came this year, 3 years later. So I had a client who had, you know, $3 million plus property, and they found my video online. And she called me up out of the blue and said, Shawn, I saw your video online. I think you're the guy for us. We really like you from your video. We want to meet you. And I said, you found my video online? That's fantastic. That's great. Okay, I'm in. Let's meet. So went up to the cottage
Right.
and met them. Super nice folks. And fast forward, you know, 2 years later, it was a bit of a challenge. Things take a little bit longer up here sometimes to sell, especially if you're in that $3 million range. So, but she stuck with me. We had a great relationship. We still do. I consider her a friend. She'll call me about all her other real estate needs, and they are many. So it was a good relationship. But the return came this way, was that I had a client call on the listing and said, we're really, really interested. I said, sure, no problem. We go and see the property. They take them twice. We go through the process. So they decided to put an offer, and they said, oh, by the way, we also have another cottage that we own now. We just built it a couple years ago, but we got 1 foot itis in it. Like, it's just too small. The living room's not big enough, and we've got a big family. That's why we want the compound. Sure, great. Let me go see it. They wanted top end dollar for this property, and eventually we got it. So now I've got both ends of the first one. I've got their property that sold in 2 weeks over ask. I then got three other properties so far, with 2 others that I'm talking with from one evoker video. And we're talking, all told and still counting, over $11 million in sales.
Right.
And so the point of all this is that sometimes it's worth taking a chance, and, you know, not to be discouraged that the results don't come immediately, because if it was the right call, and we're not always going to make the right call, but if it was the right call, over time, it's going to return in ways that maybe we couldn't even imagine. I couldn't have imagined this, but I'm certainly grateful that I took that leap, and it's turned out this way.
And I'm gonna agree and disagree with you, because anytime you're doing something that's going to connect with your clients, it's the right call. The video, it can't be the wrong call, because it's not going to not connect, especially Evoker. They're branded. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. It's going to happen, number one. And number two, you know, to your point about the video, there are 11 million in sales that you know about that video incurred. But how many people saw the video but saw you in 5 other ways? But that video, whether they told you or not, was the video that told them who you are, what you're about, and gave them the reason to hire you. So to me, you know, I asked myself, you know, in business, to your point, everybody's like, how do I get people to hire me? Well, what about, why would they? Right. Make it easy for them to hire you. Make it easy for them to refer you with things like that video to help showcase who you are. It's easy to refer, and they're proud to.
Yeah, you know what?
Right.
You're absolutely correct. And, you know, let's take that a step further, in that the video, and this is maybe a plug for all personal videos. I think every person should have them. Yeah. The whole goal is to create an emotional connection with you. And so, right, to your point, there's no risk in investing any amount within reason in your ability to create that emotional connection with your clients, with other agents, you know, with the public in general.
Yeah, because they're high, especially these days, people look at properties before they set for them. They hire you before they meet you. Usually when people do, if they're doing a list, I don't know that I don't think I compete for many listings, but it's because they decided to hire me last year from all the content that's out there about me. And there's also the track record that helps. But to your point, the people ultimately make the decision on the emotion that is invoked by that video that you create.
You bet. You bet.
So we talked about your story getting into real estate, aligning with the right people, and that investment that might be scary, but it's a risk, but maybe it's not. The last thing I'd love to know is, in your business, what do you think gives you there? You've already indicated a lot, but what gives you that cutting edge over? You're in a competitive market, in a market with not a strong sense of urgency. How do you become that agent of choice? What is that competitive edge that you have when people are interviewing other agents and you?
So we're in a bit of a changing market, and while I absolutely agree that in past years there hasn't been a sense of urgency, that's sort of shifted right now.
Yes.
There's a huge sense of urgency right now.
Yeah.
We are, it's very much a seller's market here right now, which is not something we normally experience. People are looking for more space. They want a less urban environment. They can work from home. All this stuff that I've heard from so many colleagues across North America with
Yeah.
secondary markets, it's happening here, and
Yeah.
we're experiencing that right now. So, what
And for
we've
those
had to
of
adapt.
you, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. I apologize, but
Sure.
I want anybody that listens, because people listen to these, people listening to episode 2 still. And this is about episode 179. This is during the COVID quarantining. We're just coming out of this, for those of you who aren't watching this live on Facebook. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So good point. So we're in a unique time. Uh, Nobody would have ever expected what is going on, and like I said, the market's kind of gone crazy here, and I know there's lots of secondary markets. So in this particular moment in time, the ability to pivot and adapt to what we're seeing is a huge contributor to success. And one of the biggest things that I did when all of this started was to learn from my colleagues and explore what other things we could be doing, and understanding that people are looking predominantly online before they're going out into the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Need to make sure that we had a competitive advantage there.
Mm-hmm.
So won't go into too much detail, but added the 3D virtual tours to the other digital stuff we were doing, created a microsite, and packaged everything in a way that at least online where people were looking, we were looking as good, if not better than everybody else. The other part that I think sets me apart, and it's actually the part that I enjoy probably the most about selling real estate, is the personal connection. And I'll tell you a quick story about a client that I was working with earlier this year. Lovely couple, dealing with the health crisis, as we've just talked about. They were also trying to downsize a little bit at the time. Their son was going through some medical issues, so they just had a lot on their plate.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been talking for a while about listing their property, and lo and behold, the neighbor walks over an offer to them. And it was still at the point that I hadn't signed any listing documents with them. We were still talking, and I immediately knowing everything that was going on with them, the only thing that really mattered to me was a successful outcome for them and for their family.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent I would call them every single day just to see how they were doing. I felt like they needed the support, and they needed a little bit of guidance on how to manage this offer that they didn't have representation for. And so, because I kept that connection with them and kept my door open,
Mm-hmm.
it got to the point that they said, Shawn, you know what, this is too much for us. We know the value that you bring to this situation. And so regardless or not, whether this offer that we have in hand goes through, we'd like you to list our property, and we'd like you to represent us.
Wow.
And the deal ended up turning out great. Everybody got what they deserved and what they needed. And the family was able to get over their anxiety around the world that they were living in at the time. And regardless of how ultimately I was compensated, the compensation was nothing compared to the thankfulness I had for being able to be part of the process and help these people to a great outcome.
Yeah, that's a great story. So, you know, and the lesson, that coming from the guy who got his license because agents had no value.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've all been in situations where people are less than understanding what we do offer. So I think it's on us as realtors to really try to demonstrate that it's all about the value that we bring to them. And so helping them understand not only the process and the nuts and bolts of how all that stuff goes together, but what we really do for them. We're helping them through the biggest purchase or sale of their life. And quite often, I'm sure you can tell many stories about this, they have no idea even where to start.
Exactly.
And so our ability to provide them value every step of the way is why we earn what we do, and why we can feel successful and proud of helping people every day.
And as I so often say, why, despite the fact that everybody thought Zillow was going to eliminate the realtor, it's actually just made us more valuable to our clients.
Well, you know, we don't know what Zillow is here in Canada, so that's okay.
Well, exactly. Well, the internet, how about that? I want to ask
that works perfect.
One more thing before we do our final 3 questions.
All right.
You said pivot and adapt. Do you have anything you want to share about what you mean by that and some recent pivoting and adapting? You've done a lot of pivoting and adapting that you've expressed in just your experience as an agent, but in the recent times, especially through the COVID-19 quarantine, the changes in the world recently. It'll be interesting to see where this takes us. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I remember I met with a friend last night who's up in the area for a couple of days, and he was by my place in early March, and we were kind of sitting there, and I like the term take my hands off the wheel, which means I do everything that you can do, but at some point you just gotta believe in the stuff that you put in place and see where things take you. And in this particular case, what I'm referring to is that when the health crisis hit, nobody knew what was going to happen to the market. How could you? We didn't know what was going to happen to the financial markets, and therefore what would trickle down to the housing markets. And there's this whole moment of uncertainty. And so in that moment, I said to him, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. But I kind of, need to believe that because I know this is not of my doing, I have to figure out if there's something that I can do to improve my position. So when I'm on the other side of this, I took action and tried to do some things that would be helpful to my business long term. And so my adapting, I dove into Zoom. I dove in hard. I was on Zoom 5-6 hours a day with colleagues, with clients, as many as who would take me at the time, with some training, some coaching, online coaching. I was just starving for more and more information. Yeah. And what came out of that was great. I mean, I'm having a wonderful year, and a great term that I've heard in the past is, what you focus on expands. And so I focused hard on my business and starting to look at things a different way, continuing to create relationships, looking for ways to improve my systems. And then when I came out the other side, not that we're on the other side, but when business started to happen again, it was expanding. Mm-hmm. And so, it's about what you do in the hard times to prepare yourself better for the good. And, I think that's the biggest lesson that I took out of my experience in the last 3 or 4 months.
It's what you do in the hard times to prepare yourself. What was the rest of that statement? It was really good.
To prepare yourself for the good times.
For the good. Love that. Such a true statement. Such a good lesson. We all know, but to be reminded and to really live it and apply it.
Well, it's also important to remember none of us are perfect, right? Yeah. So things can be overwhelming. You could have the 20 greatest ideas in the world, like we talked about. If you get to 5 and you do those 5 really, really well, and then you
You just
get
do
together ones
one.
later
Remember,
and
just
one.
one. I mean, just get
Perfect.
one
Yes,
done. Right?
absolutely. And so it's about doing something, because if you're like me, doing nothing is not an option.
Exactly. That's the thing about this business. There's a lot to do that you can be doing at all times. Just make sure it's productive. Like you are so great, obviously, with the connecting component, which is so valuable. Final three. Number one, what has been your most powerful resource or tool in making yourself or becoming a successful real estate agent?
That's the easiest one. My colleagues, my friends, my network, they are everything to my success. I'm better every day because of them, including yourself and the opportunity to be here. We learn something from each other. We share with each other. We like literally, if there's something that a good colleague of mine had, they would send it over without any expectation of anything. In fact, the only expectation they would have is, do good with it.
Yeah.
And so 100%, it is the people I surround myself with.
What is the book that has most impacted you, or that we just have to read because it's life-changing, life-altering?
That's also an easy one, The Go-Giver. I'm sure you've heard of that before.
No, of course I have. What's your biggest
Yeah, right.
takeaway from The Go-Giver?
The more you give without expectation, the more you'll receive in return.
My biggest one is to be able to give, you've got to be willing to receive. It's in there somewhere.
Well said.
I just always have to put that out there because I think it's such a big lesson, especially some people come to me and they're down and they're frustrated. And I say, you stop right there. The world is trying to offer you something. You're frustrated because you're not opening up to receive whatever that is.
It's a great point. And I sometimes struggle with the receiving part. And we got to remember that sometimes what you're receiving is not what you want, but that's okay too. It's what you need. And it's
Well
that
said.
perspective that is gonna open your world to more opportunities.
Well said. Last question. If there's one thing that you hope we remember, if we're going to end up forgetting everything else from this conversation, what would that one thing be?
It's a really good question. I would say, try new things and execute on good ideas.
Execute on good ideas. Yeah. Try new things too, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Execute. We'll just name the interview that.
Yeah.
Great interview. Thank you so much, Shawn. Good to see you on Zoom. Good to have you. I can't wait until we finally can see one another in person, hopefully soon.
Yeah, let's hope that sooner than later. Thank you so much. This has been a real treat. And I look forward to continue our conversation sometime in person soon.